PNC News First is presented by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Pizza Hut, we're taking pizza where it's never been before. Taco Bell, the only place where you live moss. Guam Auto Spot. Colgate, the #1 brand recommended by dentists. And IT&E, Life in Motion.
Live from the Broadcast Center, Akata, Tumon, Guam. Broadcasting in Guam and Saipan. Here's Janella Carrera and Clint Rigel with Donna De Jesus and Rebecca Elmer. PNC Sports with Leo Bayumo and weather with Chelsea Cruz. This is PNC News First.
Day, good evening, and thanks for tuning in to PNC's News First. We're live at the Broadcast Center in Akanta. I'm Clint Rigel.
And I'm Janella Carrera. Thanks for joining us. Your top story tonight, it's not often that a U.S. president, past or present, steps foot on our island, and today we got a rare visit from former President Barack Obama. The president made a brief stop on Guam today for refueling purposes at a hangar in Titanum. Residents and employees nearby took the opportunity to meet, shake hands, and take pictures with the president. Those pictures, of course, swirled social media. In one of the photos, you can see Guam International Airport Authority General Manager Chuck Atta. The president is seen dressed casually, wearing a light blue collared shirt and, well, dad jeans. He had just come from Hawaii from an unannounced visit, and it's unclear where he's headed next at this point.
Can lawmakers raise the liquid fuel tax without voters' approval, even if it's just a little under 2 cents? Well, they can't, at least not according to Guam law. PNC's Rebecca Elmore has the story.
For the price of a little over a penny, Senator Tommy Morrison and Speaker B.J. Cruz introduced a measure yesterday to bring better roads to Guam by raising the liquid fuel tax. However, Guam law says not before voters of Guam approve or disapprove. On matters of tax increases, GCA says, quote, notwithstanding any other provision of law, no increase in real property tax, liquid fuel tax, business privilege tax shall go into effect without the approval of the voters of Guam in a referendum held during a general election, end quote. Bill 122 seeks to incrementally increase the liquid fuel tax by 1.5 cents over the course of 3 years. In that time frame alone, the cost would be less than 1 tire. But nowhere in the bill does it specify whether the measure will head to the voters for approval. The same issue applies to the proposed gross receipt tax hike by the governor and Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr. Their measure is to increase the GRT from 4% to 4.75% in order to fund another borrowing bond for Guam Memorial Hospital. But according to Guam law, if both measures pass, both will require ratification from the public come next general election. PNC reached out to Bill 122's primary sponsor, Senator Tommy Morrison, who said, quote, should our families, senators, and the governor support the proposal, Bill 122 will be placed before the voters of Guam at the next general election for approval. However, if Guamanians want their government to fix more roadways much sooner, then I'll work with my colleagues to determine how Bill 122 should be amended to accomplish that objective, end quote. Reporting for PNC News, I'm Rebecca Elmore.
Late this afternoon, Speaker Cruz's office clarified that the bill, as written, was always intended to go to voters for a referendum and to follow the law.
Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke told Congresswoman Madeleine Bordallo it's up to Congress, not the administration, to solve Guam's compact aid shortfall, a budget-busting problem for the island. PNC's Washington correspondent Matt Kay reports.
Ryan Zinke is now set on both sides of the Natural Resources Committee dais and knows just how the budget game is played with Congress, which boils down to a bit of finger-pointing. You blame us, we blame you. Former Zinke colleague Madeleine Bordallo lobbed criticism of the president's budget at Zinke.
I am concerned that you have eliminated $3 million in discretionary compact impact that helps to supplement the mandatory 30 million shared by the affected jurisdictions each year.
Which Bordallo suggested would be bad enough if not for the scope of the compact migrant burden on Guam's treasury.
Now, in Guam alone, Mr. Secretary, the government of Guam estimates that it spends well over 100 million per year to provide social services to the compact migrants, especially in the area of health. Most of them have no insurance. We have to take care of them.
And Guam's share of compact impact aid is only $16 million. But when Bordallo asked Zinke for his response, the secretary was ready.
This is what a balanced budget would look like. There's some difficult choices, but Congress gets the last say. But it's important also to give a forum for the territories, as you are, to express why the territories should not be forgotten.
But in reversing the tables on Congress in his new role as secretary, Zinke is repeating the tactic of his predecessors to argue that the real onus is on Congress, which has the constitutional power of the purse. On a separate front, the House Armed Services Readiness Panel advanced the FY 2018 NDAA to full committee after adopting several Bordallo amendments. Among them, required the GAO to review the government's handling of Agent Orange on Guam to see if it or other dioxin-based herbicides were stored, used, or transited through Guam, required the Navy to address outstanding concerns over clearing munitions and explosives on Guam, and to direct the Navy's secretary to convey the former ship repair facility to the Guam Economic Development Authority at no cost to Gov Guam. On Capitol Hill, Matt Kay for PNC News.
The government of Guam has nearly doubled its spending on leases in just a little over a decade. According to an Office of Public Accountability analysis of Government of Guam leases, the amount spent on leases has gone from $6.8 million for 493,701 square feet in FY 2004 to $12.5 million for 493,097 square feet in FY 2015. This increase is mostly attributed to an increase in cost per square foot, which went from $1.15 in fiscal year 2004 to $2.11 in FY 2015. 80% of the total annual lease costs for Gov Guam in FY 2015 are from the top 10 Gov Guam entities with the highest lease costs. Customs and Quarantine spent $2.7 million, which is the most on annual rent for FY 2015. The Office of the Attorney General spent $1.5 million. The Department of Public Health and Social Services a little over $1 million, and the Department of Revenue and Taxation spent $978,000 on rent. The report states that the OPA has been urging the legislature to evaluate the feasibility of building government-owned facilities to house government entities in the future. The OPA concludes that, quote, the amount of money spent on leases could be used to purchase or build office space to house government entities.
Well, after filing a motion to not appear at his sentencing hearing, in court today, Ray Charles Camacho changed his mind. His attorney, Doug Moylan, says while Camacho previously stated he did not want to appear at his sentencing because he was too emotional and ashamed to face his victim, Monique Baza, he will be appearing in court since the victim stated she wanted him present. Tydinko's position is that Camacho was not cooperative or truthful. Camacho was arrested for abducting and raping Baza at the Crown Bakery parking lot in 2012. He had been previously sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, but that sentence was overturned on appeal for resentencing. Although Moylan fought for a lesser sentence of 15 years for Camacho in a plea deal, Chief Prosecutor Phil Tydinko says he will again push for a life sentence.
Of course, as you know, the victim has stated that publicly she wants him to be present during the sentencing, and so they've decided to withdraw their that motion. So that was good. The second part, of course, there will be the continuation to next Friday, 1 p.m. will be a combination of the evidentiary and sentencing hearing. The evidentiary hearing will be about whether he should get the benefit of the favorable terms of the plea agreement. You know, the minimum mandatory, which would be 15 years, or do I get to argue up to life?
And Camacho's sentencing hearing is scheduled for Friday, June 30th at 1 p.m.
Guam Community College officials called law enforcement after noticing a female student returning to class late from lunch with bruises and a torn shirt. On Wednesday afternoon, court documents state that the victim told police that she was picked up by her boyfriend, identified as 23-year-old Evan Connor Titanum. The victim alleges that Titanum accused her of cheating on him with one of her classmates. According to a magistrate's report, Titanum drove her to the parking lot of a Chalampago store where the couple argued. Witnesses say they saw the victim return with messy hair, a torn shirt, and bruises on her knees. However, the report says the victim claims Titanum is not usually violent, but takes out his anger on her possessions instead. She also claimed she did not remember how she got her bruises. Titanum told police that he accidentally pulled on the victim's shirt when grabbing her phone, but denied knowledge of causing any injuries. Police say the victim has made reports of abuse from Titanum in the past. He was charged with family violence as a misdemeanor.
Yesterday afternoon, another alleged victim of child sex abuse filed a complaint against the Archdiocese of Agana, saying he was raped by a priest over 100 times. A man using the initials J.A. claimed he was molested and raped in the 1980s by now deceased Father Ray Tachira. J.A. states in his complaint that it started on his 7th birthday at the Assen Parish. His family was very religious, and court documents say J.A. was helping his grandfather clean the church when he asserts that Tachira claimed he was going to give him a birthday present. Tachira took J.A. to the rectory, fondled and molested him, then gave him $20 afterwards to keep it a secret and to be a, quote, good Catholic. The complaint states that when J.A. would try to push the priest away or beg him to stop, Tachira would say, quote, don't worry, I'm a priest, end quote. The sexual abuse and rape continued for 2 years until J.A. refused to go back to church. He is seeking $5 million in damages.
Monsignor James Beneventi has submitted his resignation as delegate of Coadjutor Archbishop Michael Burns for church patrimony. Monsignor Beneventi was appointed the position last October to oversee church assets for potential liquidation in order to compensate sex abuse victims. There have been scores of lawsuits filed in both local and federal court against the Archdiocese of Agana, and most plaintiffs are seeking $5 million to $10 million each, which is now running into the hundreds of millions. Prior to his appointment for church patrimony, Monsignor Beneventi was embroiled in a dispute over the church's finances. In 2014, Archbishop Anthony Apparon removed Monsignor Beneventi as the rector of the cathedral, resulting in a public outcry from many in the Catholic community. About 2 years later, he was cleared of wrongdoing, but by then, Archbishop Apparon's allies had already released what they believe was evidence of the priest's financial wrongdoings. In a statement to the media, the Archdiocese said Archbishop Burns is praying for Monsignor Beneventi and has not yet taken any action on his resignation.
All right, well, we have more news first coming up right after this. Stay right there.